We'll now start with working session 1, is devolution of powers to panchayat key to good governance. May I request the chairperson of this session, Advocate Ramakan Kala, former Union Law Minister, former Deputy Chairman Goa State Planning Board, and former Chairman of Goa Law Commission, to please take a seat. And I also request the other speakers of this session, Dr. Adesh Chaturvedi, Associate Professor, Goa Institute of Management, P. Matthew Samuel, Secretary Panchayati Raj, Government of Goa, Sitaram Tengse, Senior Journalist, and Mr. Sauter D'Souza, Director, Center for Panchayati Raj, Peaceful Society, to please take a respective seat.
Okay, my friends here on the dais with me and in front of me. Wish you all a very happy, hot and sultry forenoon. And let's launch the topic for discussion. We are supposed to talk about, is devolution of powers to panchayat key to good governance? I have my friends, Dr. Adesh Chaturvedi, Associate Professor of Goa Institute of Management with me, Sri P. Matthew Samuel, IAS Secretary Panchayati Raj, Government of Goa, Sri Sitaram Tengse, Senior Journalist, and Mr. Sauter D'Souza, Director, Center for Panchayati Raj, Peaceful Society. We have, I believe, 11:30. Can we go till 1:30? That makes 2 hours. If that's the case of 2 hours, then 150 minutes. 15 minutes each. Okay, 15 minutes each. I think we must leave a few minutes more for discussion. Yeah. All right, so that's where we proceed. And I'll first make a few opening remarks about the whole thing. My first objection is to the topic itself. Is devolution of powers to panchayat key to good governance? This phrase good governance, which has been used here, is not supported by the Constitution of India. Constitution of India, Article 243G, which speaks about powers of panchayat, talks about self-governance. And self-governance and good governance are two different things. They are poles apart. The self-government need not necessarily be a good governance. Of course, it can make attempts to be good. And self-governance itself has its own connotation. One has to go back to pre-independence days when India's freedom fighters talked about self-governance, Swaraj. Lokmanya Tilak himself said that Swaraj is my birthright. And so on, we all know these stories. And of course, Gandhiji, we can't forget him. Gandhiji had, which he himself called, something which may be described as an utopian dream. Self-governance, self-rule, concept was very noble in his mind. And when he talked about how an individual should exercise self-restraint in his personal work, performance of his own duties to himself, to his fellow men, to the society at large. He believed in a certain type of governance wherein there would not be any centralized power exercising its veto, using its mace, so to say, or using a sword to compel the citizens to follow or comply with a particular line of thought, but where individuals would evolve. They would look at the people around them, and self-restraint would be the principle underlying the concept of self-governance. So of course, these are very low-fee ideas which in day-to-day world we cannot really put into practice. So far as the implementation of 73rd Amendment, which came in our Constitution, followed by the 74th Amendment regarding municipalities, I wish to make a small suggestion there, whatever you say. Small states have been permitted to have a two-tier system in the system here that we have. Panchayat and the Zilla Parishads. And I have been watching in a state like Goa, whether this concept of a Zilla in between the state government and the panchayats at the lower level is a successful experiment or not. You will all agree, devolution has not taken place in any way down the line. The Zilla Parishad members, we sometimes wonder whether they do exist or not. And yet, is there any need at all for a Zilla? So one thing I was suggesting for a long time, that there should be an amendment whereby we should take away the Zilla Parishad and have Taluka Panchayat at the Taluka level, so that we have of course the dream of the constitution is complied with. For small states, we have the panchayats, we have the Taluka Panchayats at the state. This was the concept that I thought of. But while thinking about this, I also tried to compare the situation today with the situation prevailing prior to the independence of Goa, when we used to have what we call the Kamra Municipal Conselho. Conselho is equivalent to a taluka today. And in those days, we used to have a administration or a municipality for the whole Conselho, the whole taluka. And of course, at the village level, there were Junta Locales. So if you could marry these two concepts together, why at all in a place like Goa have a municipal administration separate from the panchayats? Most of our panchayats have been so highly urbanized that some of them will qualify more to be called as a municipality rather than a panchayat. And some municipalities would better be called panchayats than municipalities. For example, Kepe, Sangye, and Perne and other areas. So therefore, I think it would be better perhaps we also apply some mind whether we could have a combination, a marriage between the municipal law and the panchayat law, because finally the functions are the same. Take away this concept of the Zilla, and if we cannot amend the constitution today, see whether we can amend the panchayat law itself or the revenue code itself and describe our taluka as Zilla for the purpose of compliance with the constitution. This is I would say an open thought which I am putting forward. Now, coming back to the devolution, because finally self-governance, good governance, whatever we call, we need to go through what the powers of the panchayats are. And the moment we read this, and just try to find out, most of us who work in the villages will find powers are functions and responsibilities: agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, social forestry, farm, khadi village, industries, blah blah blah, lot of things. And the village panchayat does not enjoy one single power insofar as Schedule 1 is concerned. They will agree with me without problem. So you have created a panchayat without devolving any power upon them. And you have defined certain things in such a way that somebody I read today or yesterday, I don't remember, that corruption has been also decentralized. On account of the panchayati raj system, somebody said corruption has been decentralized. It has been taken down to the grassroots level. It's a fact. It's a fact because you don't allow the panchayat to give a license. If you want to construct a small hut, repair your house, dig a well, no powers with the panchayat. Either the Town Planning and Country Planning Act or the Water Resources Government Department, they are the people who will give you the licenses. If this is the case, how does one go about and exercise so-called the virtual powers which have been mentioned in this case? The regional plan, even to this day, is not in place. So a villager wanting to put up a cow shed does not know what he can do other than violating the law, taking the law in his own hands, putting up a construction. Even if you put one little stone and make a step to enter your house, it is construction. If you put up a pole, a wooden pole, even to hang your shirt or whatever it is construction. And therefore, the panchayat members will find going around the villages on their fleshy bikes or four-wheelers, trying to find out who is doing what in his house or in his village. He goes to him and slaps him with a says, "I'll slap this you with a notice. You're doing illegal construction." Then, if you don't want that notice, if you don't want the action taken, do whatever you're supposed to be doing. And then we all cry from housetops that the corruption has spread to the villages. So my friends, I won't take, because I may have to make a few more remarks after my good friends talk about these matters. The basic thing is, in my opinion, let us attempt to have self-governance first. In the real way, implemented in the right sense, and then talk about good governance. Some people are talking about a Ramarajya. That is farther away than utopia. So thank you very much, and I invite, where shall I begin with? On my right is Dr. Adesh Chaturvedi, Associate Professor. I think he's the right person to begin.
After listening to your lucid and very powerful speech, I am speechless. And I was thinking that I have made a good presentation, but I think I have not made a good presentation after listening to your speech. So that's what the leader is. I have a presentation, if you allow me. Yeah. So there are few questions. Like one is, why strengthening of Panchayati Raj is important, and fine if I stay here or there. In that side, okay. And yeah, I got a new spec, so this distance will not make any difference. And the second question is, why devolution of power and how it is different from transfer of powers. The third question is, how to strengthen PRIs in Goa. And the last question is, what if the PRI become more powerful and then they start working as per their wish, keeping constitutional mandate aside. These are basically 4 questions which we usually think. And so let's see, you all know the structure, district council, block council and village panchayat. I need not to explain this. So why local government? First of all, it is a constitutional mandate. Our Constitution of India has given this mandate. So above all, Constitution is there. So why local government? Why Panchayati Raj? Because first and foremost and simple state answer is because it is a constitutional arrangement. That's it. Of course, there are few things, because it's a democratic government of local people, because it is close to the community. All the time you will find your Panchayati Raj members, they live in the village, ward panch, sarpanch, they live in the village, they are very close to the community. So anytime one can meet, one can discuss, and similar kind of problem have a different kind of solutions. Solution is always time, space, environment specific. So these local government, leaders, these PRIs, they know the local solution, or they can find out the local solution in a local way. Of course, easily approachable. This is the voice of poor and locals, and of course, they can, whatever they will implement, they can relook. If anything goes wrong, they can relook, they can revise their things then and there, because they are there. They are in the village only. They are in the panchayat only. They are not going anywhere to Panaji, Porvorim or Delhi. और महात्मा गांधी ने भी कहा था कि देश की सरकार दिल्ली में बैठे कुछ लोग नहीं चला सकते, देश की सरकार गांव में होनी चाहिए और गांव से चलनी चाहिए, ये महात्मा गांधी का कहना था. So this is the straight answer. Constitutional mandate, we said constitutional mandate is there. So let's see few aspects of constitutional mandate. In Constitution, after 73rd Amendment, 73rd and 74th Amendment, as Khalab Saab mentioned, and 74th Amendment was more of urban local body, plus the planning committee, district planning committee is also a part of 74th Amendment. So there are 2 basic part of the 73rd Amendment. One part was mandatory provisions and the second part was discretionary provisions. Now let's see quickly mandatory and discretionary provisions. Mandatory provision, of course, there should be a continuity. Every 5 years there should be a fresh selection of PRIs. There should be uniformity, 3-tier structure across the country, except those states, so-called small states, which has the population less than 10 lakhs. fortunately or unfortunately, Goa has crossed that 10 lakhs limit. So only Sikkim is so far as the state which has less than 10 lakh population. So Sikkim has village panchayat and Jila panchayat, not the intermediary panchayat, so-called taluka or block panchayat. Of course, constitution has mandated that there should be a 1/3 reservation at least for women, and of course proportionate reservation for SC, ST and OBC. So 1/3 reservation, few states they have gone beyond and they gave 50% reservation to women, like state like Bihar, Rajasthan, Kerala. One thing which is very unique in this mandatory provision is the constitution of Gram Sabha and the provision of Gram Sabha. They said that if the parliament is there in Delhi, then the parliament is also there in the village, in the name of village parliament or Gram Sabha, and Constitution had vested its mandate to the Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha is a constitutional body. It's very important, we should understand the importance of Gram Sabha, which is a constitutional body. And also there was the provision was there should be a separate state election commission and separate state finance commission to support Panchayati Raj aspects of the concern. So basically these are the mandatory provision. Since these are the mandatory provisions, by and large, all the states have adopted this plan there. But something more to come. The discretionary powers, discretionary provisions. These provisions were left on the mercy of state. So state should do this. State, if state is a good state, it should do it like that way. अगर माँ पिताजी पेरेंट्स अपने बच्चे से कह रहे हैं अच्छे बेटे हो बेटा स्कूल तो जाना ही है तुमको, ये हम तुमको कह रहे हैं यू मस्ट हैव टू गो टू स्कूल, पर बेटा फर्स्ट आ जाओ अच्छे से पढ़ लो. सो जैसे बच्चे का डिस्क्रिशनरी पावर है, वो स्कूल में फर्स्ट आता है, अच्छे से पढ़ता है, क्लास बंक करता है, तो स्कूल जाना मैंडेटरी है, माता पिता उसको भेजेंगे. इट इज लाइक दैट. सो अंडर आर्टिकल एज सर मेंशन अंडर आर्टिकल 343 243G, see there are two things. I don't know where I got this right. So there are two things. One is the PRIs में लाइट कौन सा मुझे लगा रेड है तो गड़बड़ तो नहीं हो जाएगा. So one is that preparation of plan for economic development and social justice. See, two prominent words are here. One is economic development and second is social justice. Development, if economic development can't provide social justice, then this development should not be considered as a welfare. It should not be considered as a good development or a welfare thing. So social justice and economic development, these two words are really important here. And it's said that all the 29 subjects as mentioned in 11th schedule of Constitution should be devolved in the PRIs. So these, but catch is here, it is a discretionary provision. Now, so this is the mandate, this is the constitutional arrangement, this is thing. Now my second part of presentation is basically to share a road ahead, what exactly should be done. This is all my, which based on my experience. So one thing is very important, that the capacity building of PRI is first and foremost requirement. Always there is a debate that we are ready to give the devolution of powers to the panchayat, but they are not capable enough, they are not matured enough to take that responsibility. PRI said that सर जब responsibility नहीं है तो अगर ड्राइंग रूम में बैठ के स्विमिंग सीखेंगे तो कैसे सीख पाएंगे? स्विमिंग सीखने के लिए स्विमिंग पूल चाहिए. Let us provide a swimming pool with water. So like that. So what is the way out? Capacity building without power, without exercise of anything, or give the power and then they will mess it. So chicken and hen kind of thing. मुझे एक माइथोलॉजिकल एक कहानी याद आती है कि जब भागीरथ, हमारे एंसेस्ट्रल राम राज्य की बात की, भगवान राम के पुरखे थे, पूर्वज थे भागीरथ, और उन्होंने गंगा को धरती पे लाने का काम किया था। तो जब उन्होंने गंगा का आह्वान किया, ब्रह्मा जी ने कहा कि गंगा तो मैं दे दूंगा, लेकिन गंगा का वेग इतना प्रचंड होगा कि वो धरती से पाताल में समा जाएगी, तो उसको संभालने के लिए कोई चाहिए। फिर भागीरथ से कहा गया क्या भगवान शंकर की पूजा करो, भगवान शंकर गंगा को अपने जटा में समाएंगे और वो फिर एक उसकी हल्की धार छोड़ेंगे। वही कुछ कहानी यहाँ पर है। अगर हमें पंचायत, इफ वी वांट टू डू द efficient devolution of power and want to see the effective PRIs working, then first of all we need to build the capacity, we need to provide that platform to the PRIs so that they can equip themselves and then they can execute the responsibilities. So capacity building is very, very important. Second thing, like Kerala has done, Kerala has adopted a big bang system. In 95, they have 95-96, they have started a big bang theory wherein they have given all the powers to panchayat, and there is a 1 year long awareness campaign and hand-holding campaign initiated by the government, so that the PRI should be able to know their responsibility, should be able to learn those things and able to execute those things. So one thing is the capacity building. Second thing is the general awareness. We should make aware our community, we should make aware our bureaucrats, we should make aware all the stakeholders, we should make aware our legislative assembly, सरकार को भी समझ में आना चाहिए, bureaucrats को भी समझ में आना चाहिए, पंचायती राज मेंबर्स को भी समझ में आना चाहिए और कम्युनिटी को भी समझ में आना चाहिए कि सबके रोल कहाँ हैं, who all are the stakeholders and where they fit in. एक बहुत सास बहू के सीरियल बहुत सब देखते हैं, बहू के आ जाने से सास की महत्ता खत्म नहीं होती और सास के रहने से बहू का आना नहीं रुक जाता। ये चीजें साथ साथ हैं, बेहतर है कि कैसे हम हार्मनी बना के और कैसे हम मैट्रिक्स बनाएं। सो देन हैंड होल्डिंग इज वेरी मच इम्पोर्टेंट इनिशियल ईयर और 2, डिपेंड्स अपॉन द परफॉर्मेंस शोड बाय द PRIs, एंड देन they should be given the responsibility, parents should be given the responsibility of planning, visioning exercise, planning, make the plan, monitor the scheme, facilitate the program, mobilize the community, not signing of checks or something. No MLA signs the check. It's the job of the bureaucrats, it's the job of the departments, job of the officials to execute the program. They are there for the larger concept. And instead of giving all 29 subjects, शेर है उनका कि कौन कहता है कि आसमान में सुराख नहीं हो सकता, एक पत्थर तो तबीयत से उछालो यारो। तो कम से कम एक बार पूरे ट्रस्ट करके एक बार आप विश्वास तो करें। अगर विश्वास नहीं है तो कोई सरकार, सारी कोalition गवर्नमेंट विश्वास मत हार जाती है। ग्राम सभा should be made functional, vibrant, because that will work as a check and balance body. That there is the transparency, there is the provision of approving and rejecting everything. Gram Sabha is the topmost body in PRI. Of course, activity mapping should be developed in a proper manner.
Okay, sir. 2 minutes more.
Last line. And sir, 2 minute पहले ही बोल दिया आपने. No power of signing of check, तो बहुत कम वो रहेगा. So now the discussion part is there. These are my 2 kids. Now they grown up. It's a photo which I took last time and this is. Many thanks. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi. विश्वास करके देखो, आपने कहा आपने. I hope the person is in the right occurrence. Listen to you and do the needful. A very optimistic person. May I call upon senior journalist Shri Sitaram Tekse.
Good morning, my friend, Untitled, and other members of the panel. What I wanted to convey to you has been already expressed in part at least by Ramakanth Kalam, the presiding authority here. The discussion that has going on is particularly academic, telling what is there in the Constitution, what is there in the Act, but without or ignoring the realities. I want to talk only specifically again, in relation to Goa. The just now concluded speech, the speaker has told that the concept of small states, small. I don't consider Goa as a small state, it is a tiny state. It is a complete tiny state. And we have around 14 lakhs or some more, I think, population. Around 10 lakhs electorate. Just I'll give you some idea of how this Goa is presently overly presented the word. For an electorate of 10 lakhs or some odd is 10 lakhs 59,953. We have 3 MPs. Then we have state assembly having 40 members. We have 31 municipal corporation where there are 30 representatives. We have 13 municipal councils with total 165 members. 2 Jilla Panchayats, 40 members, and 188 Gram Panchayats, altogether 1,485 members. This total comes to 1,763. 14 lakhs of people. We elect 1,763 as our representatives to give us a good governance. Whether has it been achieved? A small state, a tiny state, which is even smaller than a district of a big state, we are wasting this much energy, money and everything. This can be managed in a best way by an efficient collector, not more than that. Then the problem, very important word it is there, governance. After independence, I think this is the first time I am hearing from political parties or political leaders the word governance. So far we have heard only government formation, swearing in ceremony of ministers, cabinet ministers, expansion of ministry. That's all going on. But no one uttered, no one stressed the importance of having governance, good governance. What is good governance? Which is speedy, which is effective, which doesn't delay anything, and which takes into consideration all the aspirations and everything. In our, I am not going again first, now I am not going to go on the 73rd amendment and 74th amendment, because we have just, the speaker has said that the constitutional mandated us to have this. But one thing I would like to say, we have completely neglected governance in the last 65 years of independence. Never regarded. We want to, everyone says that we want participatory democracy, grassroots level democracy. For this we have this panchayat raj system. In 1992, what prompted Rajiv Gandhi to have this piece of legislation? I don't know. Because in the last so many years, nothing has changed. I think when we put in place a particular legislation and we elect in all over India, it is mandatory now, we have elections of municipal panchayats. What have we achieved so far? Are you going to see what are the faults for getting nothing achievement, no achievement at all? Suppose in Goa, just Kalam has mentioned that it has become another source of corruption, breeding corruption, promotion of corruption. We know that these are all, I have mentioned 1,763 members, representatives. They are all power centers. And as the says goes, power corrupts. And it is evident each and everywhere. You go to any office, just now Kalam has mentioned how the people, common people are harassed. Panchayat system is for common people, for common man. But it is being used to harass the common people. What is the solution then? After having this, you see, in the last so many years, we are trying this system. In 1994, we enacted this, our Goa Panchayat Raj Act, 1994. Since then, we are experimenting. Since then, what is the outcome? Is there any improvement in the governance, at least at the village level? What about how will you rate our government? Small government, not small government. On this count, governance. What will you say? What has happened? And why? Is it responsive? Is it effective? Then there is another part. Not just tiny. It is highly urbanized. There is no rural area except in Goa now at land. From any corner of Goa, you can come to the capital city and return by evening by doing his work in the office to his village. These are, in this circumstances, is there any significance for having a panchayat raj system here? Or just creating power centers for power centers' sake, forbidding corruption? Because there is no check at all. You see, how are you going to check everything? What is going on everywhere? Any government functionary, you go and see how it works. So my first submission is this, that a tiny state a state like Goa, having transport facilities in place, doesn't require implementation of this Panchayat Raj Act. We should see whether we can approach the Supreme Court in this direction and place before it all these facts. Because for 14 lakhs of people who don't require 1,763 power centers, that is my first thing. I'll pose one question. He was central minister. He was also deputy chief minister in Goa. He was also part of the old political establishment to Goa. Goa was liberated in 1961. After that, it was Union Territory. In the time of Union Territory status, when we were enjoying, there were only two or three ministers. Now there are 12. But somewhere there, before that, I think most 20 or 21 ministers were there, or the people, or ministerial rank. Only Supreme Court intervened and that put bar on having the numbers of ministers to each class. And we have a smaller state, it was allowed to have for 12 ministers. Do we require 12 ministers? And I want answer from my friend Khalaf, whether the government having only 2 or 3 ministers was more efficient, the government was more effective, or the present government having 12 ministers so expanded their bureaucracy. You will be surprised. I want to mention you one. There are the government servants around 66,000, more than 66,000 out of 14 lakhs of people. 66,000. Each government, each ministers do one thing, he appoints his man. That. Why this? Why we require this? Can we have a good governance like this by having this much proliferated bureaucracy? That is my question. He will have to answer whether it was more efficient, more well-governed Goa at that time or the present. Because what I see is that is degeneration completely. No one is accountable here. No one accountable. Formerly, anyone could approach any minister, just look at phone, and the work was attended there. Now no one is approachable. No one is approachable. You can't go, you go to any office here. In these circumstances, I feel again, we don't want, he has also mentioned, that also I want to know, that there were Kamra municipal, there were 11 talukas or Kamras, and there were 12 those Kamra municipalities as well. We could have tried to revive for each taluka, only one whole taluka. For whole Southern taluka, there was one municipality at that time. Now that Margam municipality is a small area, and so many panchayats doing nothing, they are always proved to be the hindrance for development, for change. All the panchayats have become hindrance. They can't understand anything, those people who are elected. As our MLAs are blank, they know nothing. They want to give special training. So, we are having a quite different situation here. I would like to read one small, you know what that's Charles Metcalfe, one was the Governor General of India at that time, British time. What happened? There were, because Panchayat Raj or Panchayat institutions, village institutions, which is not, concept is not aligned for India. There were, and they were like republics, that is mentioned. I want to read it. such as Metcalfe, he has mentioned like this. Not aligned to India. No. Panchayat system, Metcalfe, such as Metcalfe. Small republics having nearly everything that they want within themselves and almost independent of any foreign relations. They seem to last when nothing else lasts. Dynasty after dynasty tumbles down. Revolution succeeds revolution. Hindu, Pathan, Mughal, Maratha, Sikh, English are all masters in turn, but village community remains the same. They were completely republics. No government can interfere. Even now, there are in the form of the youth, we consider them as dreaded, Khap panchayats, and that issue is coming up again and again. They are like republics, and they have an efficient administration. They are all well governed. You may say they are outdated and they are oppressive and anything, but the system is still working there. And the government, the present government, they don't want to even use their services for all these purposes. So my dear friend, I have told you whatever, because I am only proliferating this government or doing nothing, only speaking only one thing, our present Prime Minister elect, from his mouth, I first heard the word from a political class of governance. He is again and again telling minimum government, maximum governance, and all these institutions, panchayat and all that, they tend to suggest of having maximum government and minimum governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Ji. We had heard Dr. Chaturvedi, we call him an optimist, and now we have heard Mr. Tensi. Sorry, I won't call you a pessimist, but you did give exactly a diametrically opposite picture of what our friend Dr. Chaturvedi was trying to tell us. You said Goa can be governed by one collector. I would not doubt that. And from collectors, our friend Mr. Matthew Samuel has gone up to become the secretary. But I will keep him last. I'll first go to Mr. Sote, and he'll have a lot of things up his sleeve. I'm sure he has been working in this field for quite many years. I'll just give one small personal experience and then leave it to him. After my first stint as a Law Minister of India, I contested the 99 election for Parliament. And in one of my corner meetings, I went to a posh colony near Panji. And the whole entire colony had descended there for the meeting, and I was so very happy. Oh, everyone has come, and definitely I'll be sent back to the Parliament. So the moment I stepped in there, and before I could pick up the mic and speak, a group of ladies, they were all prepared, they came forward, and they said, Mr. Kalam, before you say a word here, we would like you to come with us just for 2 minutes at the back of these buildings and see for yourself what we are suffering. I said, fine. And they took me in the back of their house, the whole thing, and they pointed to me a pond, a slushy pond, muck, the gutters overflowing, and the pigs there, and all sort of things. They said, you became a minister in Delhi, who is going to prepare the correct this? They pounced on me. And though it was a posh colony, it was in a panchayat area. oh, I asked them, I said, I have no answer, but I think it is my job. Would somebody get me a mark rake? Correct? Would somebody give me a, what do you call it? A rake. Would somebody give me a rake? And they didn't know where I was leading them. I said, please bring me a Howdah Korek. But then they said, why? Very simple. They said, I would like to dig a small trench about 10 meters and lead it to the gutter which the panchayat has. And I think your problem might be solved to some extent. Will you do it? And they realized what I was telling. So those who realized sulked, and those who did not realize or didn't want to realize kept up their thing, and the meeting was a fiasco, and I lost the whole election. The entire college didn't give me any vote. So devolution of powers, power of the people, self-governance, all sort of things are there now in election. So okay, Mr. Soter, I call upon you to...
Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Khalab, and my fellow experts on this panel. I think the speakers earlier have made my work much easier. If I had to, it would be far easier for me to answer the question, should powers be devolved to panchayats, which I think Dr. Chaturvedi wonderfully put it. And whether one collector would do for Goa or not, I can have a whole day's debate on this. And why in this era, okay, as we have smaller communities, neighborhood communities, how effective they can be. That's a whole big topic that we can go whole day. But when I come to sharing my opinion on it, by the way, I have been associated with, or at least interacting with panchayat since the young age of 15. Okay, when I first went to register my bicycle tax. Okay, when I used to go to play in the panchayat, badminton, table tennis, and all those things. And thereafter, when my father became a panchayat member, and then also for some time a sarpanch. And in '97, when I myself contested and was panchayat member for one tenure, and thereafter I quit politics in 2002. That's a big story. But when it comes to answering, is devolution of powers to panchayats the key to good governance? I think I would be a hypocrite to reply in the affirmative. After hearing the speakers, especially Mr. Pengse and Mr. Khalab also sharing so many things about what is happening in the panchayats, at the onset I would ask you to forgive me in case I sound a bit cynical or even boring with what could get classified today as village people's talk, by the high-end society that is invading my village. So many times I have heard this remark, unfortunately, oh, Gram Sabhas, those village people, we want to be a municipality. Okay. So you have come, you have built your house on grazing land of the villagers, okay, and now you say they are village people, and you want a separate municipality. This is the contradictions and the hypocrisy that we are having today. And as Mr. Khalab was sharing about his experience in a small community during elections, I think there would be nothing better than to share my experience a few days which I told my friend. And I met a friend of mine. We worked together for several years in rehabilitation of drug addicts. And we bumped into each other at Panjim after quite some time. And he asked me, as we were talking, sort of, what do you feel about, what was your experience about the present elections? I said, nothing different, man, from working with families of drug addicts, okay, who kept denying the actual problem, kept blaming everyone else except themselves, and endlessly ran after solutions that fed into their denial, with the drug addict exploiting the situation to glory. So this is what I would sum up the present whole political scenario in this country. And after watching the governance tamasha in this country, I believe that we as a nation are in a state of chronic denial. Why do I say it? In fact, to understand this whole situation, we need to understand the background we are discussing. If we have to understand whether devolution are going to solve the problem or not. I cannot but agree with all the organizational and management theories, that devolution of powers will ensure accountability, efficiency in institutions. But it is something which the experts on this panel have already mentioned and will speak also further. However, whether these theories would hold good in the present context of panchayats and the much exploited and abused term called good governance is something that I would like to debate. Mr. Tengse also spoke about common people, and this has become another term which is as deceptive. I have been election agent to MPs, I have been election agent to MLAs, and I have seen this whole myth and this whole hypocrisy of something called common people. Okay? So corruption does not exist at only a particular level. And when I hear that, the asking rate for a vote is even 5,000 per vote today, okay? It is absolutely hypocrisy to blame politicians or blame bureaucrats for the corruption in this country. We are all become part of it. And we have to understand that we are dealing with a post-independence panchayat which is tailored to fit a Western exploitative and consumeristic market economy and not the panchayat, okay, which originates from what Mr. Tengse was talking, centuries old village republics that captured the imagination of the father of the nation, okay, and ultimately it found its place in Article 40 of the Constitution. You know that Gandhi, it was not there in the original draft, and Gandhi raised a hue and cry about it. Okay? There was a big debate in the Constituent Assembly, and they had to include this as a sort of amicable solution to the whole controversy. The panchayat that Gandhiji so passionately advocated was about self-reliance and self-sustenance, in contrast to the modern panchayat, which someone when I was touring in Maharashtra said is increasingly about relying on reliance and sustenance of reliance. We are in times when Rozgar, employment, takes precedence over Swabhiman, self-respect. Okay. So an industry will become more important than the self-respect of hundreds of my villagers who will be trampled, their rights trampled by the so-called industrialists, because all of us need Rozgar first. Then pizza is promoted by governments instead of rotis. A lifestyle of less kapda, so less clothing the better, because probably global warming is taking over. And studio apartments are preferred to the makan. And in sharp contrast, the traditional panchayat was about a mindset which we took priority over mine or I, and a lifestyle in which Shramadhan was preferred to contractor Raj. So what Mr. Thalap was saying, sometimes it just takes hardly 5 minutes to divert the water into the drain, rather than raising a big hue and cry and making an issue and getting the media to make a story out of this whole thing. We are the ones who create, and I'm sure somewhere some drainage pipe must have been let out there, which was because of the violations of the sanitation rules and regulations. Okay. But it becomes an issue. And now I come to the much exploited term good governance, which is as deceptive as the term panchayat. So an exploitative economy that dictates political governance is comfortable with the term good governance instead of ethical governance. I think it's high time we stop using this stupid word or this deceptive word called good governance. Let us talk about ethical governance. And that opens up a whole lot of can of worms for many people. This is because even lack of transparency, contempt for human rights, and absence of public participation in policy making by governments, and laws manipulated to favor the market forces become eligible to be branded as a good governance. Please do not misunderstand me when I use this analogy. That even a union government which takes over the community's responsibility of swachhata, that is cleanliness, of the river Ganga, by bypassing the local bodies, would also be hailed as good governance. The mass construction spree by the state government, which more than often cannot be accessed by the local community, not to mention the preference of certain contractors, the undeclared cuts on every tender and damage to environment, can also be branded as good governance. In short, the term good governance is also a commodity available in the market that can be tagged along by those who pay the price. And this is what we have seen going on in this whole thing, because we are a country in denial. And anything which feeds into our denial, we are ready to grab. How long we are going to go, I do not know. But there will come a time when I believe that everything will hit its rock bottom. Because in drug addiction, we always waited anxiously when the drug addict is going to hit rock bottom and say, yes, I am helpless, now come on, give me the solution. And the solution was not far away. I think there have been several writings of several luminaries in this country. And to understand our present day contradictions, since this is a seminar talking about the role of the media and the community media in human development, I would request each one of the media persons here, it just costs 10 rupees, not even, just one chai. Okay. Please take this book written by Gandhi over 100 years ago, Hind Swaraj, okay, and tell me what is not fitting to the present day mess. What this man had written 100 years, this is my open challenge. None of the academicians want to touch this book because that confronts you and me, our whole thinking, perceptions, what we are seeing and how we are part of this whole mess. Okay. Because Gandhiji had forewarned of some things that will come if we adopt certain things recklessly. And he had compared the Western Parliament then 100 years back to a sterile woman and a prostitute. Okay. It could be also a sterile man in today's context. He had also said that Western development would breed towns in which there are thieves, dacoits, cheats, and women and children life would be under threat. It's written in all this. Okay. He has spoken extensively also about advocates, journalists, doctors. So we talk about medical terrorism today. Okay. He's already written about it. And in this context, when our very foundation of this country, no one wanted to listen to this man. Ultimately, they shot him because they wanted to listen to this man. And it took 60 years for some people now to utter the word that Mahatma Gandhi spoke about swachhata. Okay. We are trying to say and discuss how devolution is going to work in panchayats. And our very foundation in this country needs to be relooked. Our whole economic system needs to be reworked. And it's in this context, I think only then that we cannot blame the panchayats for not functioning in a particular manner or being a failure. And I also many times they say, why should panchayats be powers be devolved to panchayat? they are corrupt, they are this. I said, your state assembly is corrupt. So let us abolish the state assembly also. Why don't we say that? And let us abolish the union government also. Because there also is corruption. And Vinoba Bhave had said, let the government take a 2-year holiday, and then come back, and you will see that this nation will continue to go, the milkman will continue to milk the cow and deliver his milk, the vegetable man will continue to bring vegetable in the market, and after 2 years people will realize that we don't need a government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhir D'Souza. The man actually from the field, we have heard him, so beautifully he has put forward. Of course, he did confront the views of Mr. Tengse. Tengse advocated that we don't need such a top-heavy government of 1,763 members elected. He wants one collector, and you have the other views. But of course, now I think time has come for all of us to listen to the government itself, represented by very able administrator, Mr. Matthew Samuel, who I am told has been doing, of course, I haven't met him personal level, but I heard from the others that he has been doing a very good job as IAS officer in this field of panchayat raj and whatever other thing that is happening. So let's hear you, Mr. Matthew. The very distinguished chairperson of this panel, former Union Law Minister, Mr. Kala, Dr. Adesh Chaturvedi, Mr. Sitaram Tengse, and the speaker before me, Mr. Sudhir D'Souza. I think I'm very glad and privileged to be in this panel, which is chaired by a former UN minister who in his wisdom asked me to speak last. I'm very grateful to him because I was able to listen to all the other points of view. And also because a former minister knows very well that the bureaucrat must have the last word. So, actually I come here more...
We have all seen an ex-minister.
We have all, I've had tremendous inputs. When I came this morning, I was wondering what are they going to talk about? What is there? We already know what the panchayats are like. So, but here we have had an amazing variety of opinions and views and facts, which have been quite very useful for me. Let me first start out with a correction that I haven't been doing anything spectacular in panchayats. I've just started working there and I've been delusioned by the amount of files and of course plastic garbage that we see all around the state. Well, devolution of panchayat, key to good governance itself is a strange topic because devolution of what? It should be devolution of powers. Well, I suppose the powers are taken for granted. But it's a bit of an oxymoron because the traditional wisdom says that devolution of anything is good, supposed to be good, and that's what we've all been brought to believe. A steady diet of devolution is good for everything. But our practice and experience says that it isn't always the case. In Goa, I have come as a rank outsider. I worked in another part of the country for most part of my life. I've just come here. And my experiences of what I've seen here and what I've tried to perceive here are quite mine. I may be forgiven if I make some overgeneralizations or simplify things. But these are the impressions that I've gathered, not so much the legal structure which I'm yet still to come to grips with. At the risk of simplifying things, what I've seen, try to understand about Goa is that essentially it's descended from a tribal society with a certain Brahmin overlay which came in around 700 AD. And out of this tribal society came the concept of common ownership of land that all tribal societies have. Most parts of India except central India and some other parts of northeast have already lost that concept, but in Goa it's been preserved. And this tribal
value held together in a kind of a Brahmanical framework of caste is what has now come down to be what is Goa. Of course, so we have the Gaonkari system with the Wangod, the clans that must have originally colonized Goa, the various families after whom the talukas are named, Vasishti, Tiswadi, Pardes. And the complex system that was a marriage between tribal ideas and the Brahmanical philosophy of people fitting into various socio-economic groups, each with their place in society, created a society in this very wonderful, very beautifully fertile land, and created these sufficient village republics. They have had most of the things going for themselves, and this is what I believe has created most of Goan psyche today. And there were complex equations of caste and land ownership, and of course religious intonation. There was an overlord. He kept law and order. People like bandits and other occasional, bandits and marauders coming under various names. It was the overlord's responsibility to keep that under control. He had his own network of bigger landlords and people whom they gave tribute once in a while, but overlords came and went, but the village life went on. It was quite peaceful, everyone knew his place. So there was not much problem, and they were mostly self-sufficient except for a little bit of trading here and there for those things that could not be got in the village. Now then came the Portuguese. Now this was a new equation here. There of course the Portuguese came into the different system. They became the new overlords, but they weren't like the other overlords. They started getting into society quite deeply. They also tried to alter the religious demographics. They had their own compulsions. They were trying to create a society here where they could finally come and settle down. In that system, the Comunidad system was born. There was a lot of change in that system. There was upheaval. People left. Very large numbers of migration took outside, went out. People left out, went out of these territories. But then the recognition of the Portuguese realized that they could not tamper too much with this. But this time, they left the Comunidad, they called it the Comunidad system, the Gaonkari system remained, although the religion of some of these people had changed. The land had moved to some other people. And it was mutated in part, but land was the central activity. The Comunidad was modified and codified. Probably one of the last things the Portuguese did before they left, barely 6 months before liberation, they issued a decree of Comunidad. But be that as it were, there were so many things that happened in Goa. You had something like a liberal Western society, a democracy here in Goa in the last decades of the 19th century, when Goa had a level of civic life quite surprising compared to the rest of the country, although many other places also had this. That was largely a city, urban phenomenon. It was largely related to the landed class. Again, for most parts, the villagers lived in their villages. But what has fostered is, what I have seen is here in Goa, is this very strong sense of village republicanism. It is that. You have clubs. When Goans go outside the state, they don't band themselves under the banner of Goans in general. They band themselves under the banner of their villages. This has been the clubs in Bombay, over a century old. Today if you go to Dubai, some of our NRI commissioners have been heckled by Goans and others, NRI Goans saying that you don't understand our problem, you are not from our village. So this village republicanism is very, very, very strong. And in turn it comes because of the old roots of what Goa was. It's still there. The ghosts of the past, so to say, still exercise a very strong control over how Goans think. And whether you say the village panchayat system is good or bad or rotten, they exercise a very significant hold on the psyche of most Goans in Goa. They tend to think along village lines. And the tendency to think about state lines is a secondary learned habit. It's not the first. The first is your village or your town. Town, of course, things have changed. And very fierce village loyalties. Now, these things have remained unchanged even after liberation to a large extent, although today life is far more complicated than it used to be. And that is why I would take a little I beg to differ with some of the speakers here who said that it's either you complete the old system or you just have one system of governance, make it a very highly centralized system. Goan society and life has become a lot more complicated than the pre-liberation days. We have many other forces working here. Tourism, mining, changing lifestyles. Tourism has brought with it a lot of changes. Not necessarily for the good. They have dispossessed Goans of their own land in large measure because of people buying up places. These have led to, tourism has led to distortions in villages where housing projects or hotel projects can consume more electricity and water than the rest of the village put together. These lead to, along with that is the lure of easy money. Tourism, by definition, is easy money. And you can see the distinction of what life is along the tourist belt and in the mountains. They're completely different. In the mountains, life is very much like how it is in Karnataka or Maharashtra. But this whole thing, villages, the city of Candolim Baga is probably bigger than Panchayat. By all rights, it should be a city, but it's still, we have these archaic panchayat divisions which create huge problems in sewage disposal, water supply, garbage disposal, you name it, all these things do not. The problems of modern life sometimes put a great deal of stress on thinking like village republics. So this leads to a lot of problems, and we see that a lot of these problems are there. Along with those, there is also some of the good that goes with the old village panchayat system. One is the Gram Sabhas are very active here. You have a population that's socially and politically very aware. Although that doesn't necessarily mean problems are solved. There is a lot of awareness. And the other thing is a certain slowness to change. Goa has had one of the most stable kind of regimes anyone has had in India. If you see, Portuguese rule is about 450 years, 450 years. This is much longer than the Mughal, the Gupta, the Maurya empires itself. So for 450 years you had a different kind of rule, hardly anything changing. A common civil code which doesn't exist in other parts of the country, which gives you a sense of homogeneity which is not found anywhere else in the country. And added on this, the old overlay of the tribal society and the village panchayat. Now, when it comes to development in the modern sense, such as highways, or roads, or infrastructure, or airports, or power stations, or even garbage disposal plants, it's not surprising to see the conflicts that you see all over the world. This is because people tend to think their own village first. And so when that kind of a framework, it's very hard to override your own smaller, interests, to compromise it in terms of for a larger interest. So this is why we find many of the political controversies here, including that of language, I would say, have got to do with this points. And the points of conflict are many. Land use. There is always a big debate as to who should have the power over land, whether it's the panchayat or whether it's the state government. Both have a lot of problems. Tourism, that's another issue. And about garbage. Garbage is a classic example of what is happening in Goa because we have a panchayat system. We have been trying to tackle the issue of garbage. We can't tackle it. Really the truth, we can't tackle the entire issue of garbage. Wet garbage we can't handle because there's no system to handle it right now. Some of these places, especially along the coastal areas, have grown at such a huge pace that there is no system to handle it. But we've tried to handle a limited thing of plastic, of biodegradable and non-biodegradable plastic. And what we found is that we have 180 panchayats having 180 different ways of trying to deal with this problem. And actually what we found is plastic is being freely circulated all over the world. One village takes its plastic, gives it to a contractor who tells them it's going out of the state, we don't know where. But most likely it's landing up in the next village. And so there is this massive circulation of plastic garbage throughout the world. Now when we ask people, we are setting up these garbage plants in North and South Goa. We find that there's no great science about this. There's no rocket science, this garbage disposal plants. They're very simple mechanical devices. The problem is that these plants will not get the garbage. Because there's no system of sending the garbage to a centralized plant. Because people find it difficult to think of that. I want to have a garbage system disposal plant for my village, or hopefully in the next village, not in mine. And I don't want their garbage in my village. And nobody sends finally the garbage to the garbage disposal plant. So we are going to set up some garbage disposal plants which will have no garbage to process. So we have been now trying to get the panchayat villages saying, don't give your garbage to a contractor, give it to us. We will take care of it. We will take it and process it and send it to Karnataka, where it will be burnt in a furnace for cement and used for hours. We have capacities to handle something like 50 truckloads a week. We were not even able to get 1 truckload a week. 2 truckloads a month. Now we've increased it to about say 4 or 5 truckloads a week. Out of 180 panchayats, 30 have joined. Many of them are very sincere about the work that they want to do, but to work in a coordinated manner is still quite hard for them. This has nothing to do with law, it has got to do with a legacy. And many of these things are a problem there. Then again, the problem that people told, our speaker before us told. Some of the problems that panchayats face are a function or only a reflection of how people are. We find that land disputes, I've been dealing with in the panchayat, more than 3/4 of the decisions of directors of panchayats deal with petty disputes among neighbors. 90% of our cases, I can say almost blindly, are disputes between neighbors. A tendency to quarrel over land. That's again a function of your civil code, which gives everybody a right to the land. So everyone is tied down to their land, they can't leave. And they get very possessive about it, they fight. And the panchayats are deluged with litigation. Sometimes about things that can be solved, people take. The old caste conflicts haven't gone with the land. They're there. Because today, the other castes or the poorer people in the village have now become the rich people. They have gone to the Gulf, they have gone to other places, they've made money, they've come back, they've made good in the tourist trade. And when they try to exert their economic power in the village, it's resented by the older group. That is another line of litigation that blocks it. So, you see, therefore the picture that we get is very, very mixed and complex. And it has got to do with our own historical heritage. And now the thing has changed. The whole basis of the economy is changing. Life has become more complex. We need new mechanisms to deal with these problems. Geographically, what we have seen when it comes to the issue of devolution, geographically, you have every square inch of land in Goa belongs to either one panchayat or the other. And the state has power over all these lands. So basically, when it comes to the issue of powers, there has to be a clear demarcation of who can do what. And there are areas which will overlap. So these things have to be made very clear. And what Dr. Adesh Chaturvedi said about activity mapping and matrices can help in creating a scientific division of these powers to the extent possible. It's not completely possible because problems that come up in these running of these institutions are very much a reflection of society themselves, not of the system. There is no point blaming this person or that person. It's the way we are that creates the problems. And like what he said, unless you change yourself or you take a hard look at yourself and see where you're getting to, you can't solve these problems. So therefore, the solution I feel would lie in an intelligent devolution of powers, not a blind devolution of powers or devolution of powers per se. You have to look at areas, look at the situation now and decide what powers should go to the panchayats, what powers should be shared concurrently, and what powers has to be exercised by the state. There is a legitimate role for the state. And above all, there has to be honesty in dealing with it. Otherwise, Panchayati Raj, as we have seen in many other parts of the country, is only democratization of corruption. You had just a few people making money, now you have everybody trying to make money. The result is sheer misery. I worked in Pondicherry before coming here. Let me tell you that you have a much better system than places like that. We literally gave rebirth to the panchayat system in Pondicherry. And what we found was we had 1,200 functionaries in a place 1/7 the size of Goa, already with 30 MLAs. So what happened is that within a year, within 1.5 years, all the contractors ran away. They said, we are not going to do any more work with these guys. We have to pay so much money. We have to pay this money here, money there, money there. Finally, there is no money for anything left for the material. They said, we are not doing any work. And these poor chaps, they thought they were going to make a lot of money. They say, it's not. Small places have the same problems everywhere. These sarpanches, we have another name for them, spent a lot of money and they found they were not getting back. And the result was tremendous frustration, anger directed at everyone. And people who were supposed to do the development work in the village just gave up. So the damage that we have done there is quite amazing. Whereas in Goa, because you have a tradition of doing things this way, things are much stronger. Despite all the problems that we hear about, a lot of negativity, there is still, at least people feel they have a stake in their own village, which is a good thing. They have a stake, they feel they can change things. The hope is that there is agitation, there is a lot of shouting and all that, but that's a healthy thing. And I hope that we can find a way to take a middle path and try to do things which can be pragmatically done, so that the requirements and needs of a village are not overawed by the state, and also where the needs of the state are there to take care of the common good above the people, that can also be done. I hope that we will be able to do that in Goa. And once again, thank you very much. It was so helpful to hear from all of you.
Mr. Matthew, you said at the beginning of your address that finally everything stops at the table of the bureaucrat. And you ended with that same thing by mentioning that the powers of the intelligent devolution. Now, how exactly that could be achieved in a place like Goa will have to be worked out. But basically, you took us to the long history, starting from the tribal days to the present days of conflict, where new systems try to be superimposed upon the old system. This is the type of mess that we all find here. Democratization of corruption has taken place in a much bigger way than perhaps what we experienced in Pondicherry. In fact, is really in a position to give you a certificate.
The problem of ours is the governance, performance and the accountability. Now, whom to blame? Sometimes we feel as a common person that we ourselves are to be blamed. But a common person where to run? If a work is to be done from a panchayat or even from a municipality, we find in municipality there are thoughts. Who says, we will give you the work done, give me this much of money. And the person has hard of time, hard of energy, he is gullible and he gives the money and gets his work done. Actually, it is the political will. Everybody puts the blame to the others. Actually, Rajiv Gandhi had his legislation in all the good faith. Now, Goa is highly urbanized. Every village person is literate compared to the other part of India. He has his village identity and he is really proud of it. But regarding this garbage, if the law is to be made, we feel that the college of that taluka or that locality is to be done whatever process in their area.
May I disturb you? Our friend Mr. Chaturvedi has to go. His family is reaching the railway station very soon. So if any questions can be directed to him before he leaves, I would appreciate that. and be succinct and short.
Ultimately, he is
and
a
put your
government-
question straight away.
Ultimately, he is a government servant.
No, he's not a government servant.
He is
an academic.
He is an academy. But my basic question is, the panchayat system is there.
Yeah.
Now to deal with it and to tackle with it, panchayat system, the corruption which comes along with it, rather than that,
What could be done? Will you please?
why can't we have a welfare association of the residents itself without any power? If the residents themselves want some welfare of their locality, they have to come forward, and ultimately whatever their grievances are, who are going to tackle? The municipal councillor who is there, he is to be.
That's a good suggestion, in fact.
Yeah.
In fact, the Gram Sabhas and all those that we were thinking of, that was the concept.
No, but the councillor doesn't take the responsibility. The problem is here. Whatever your effort is there, councillor comes only once when the elections are to be taken, as MPs are also.
Okay, please, Satyam, can you answer?
Yeah.
Madam, I think it's not so simple as this thing. In my panchayat, we have been struggling to form these ward development committees. We also had some time back regional plan referred to panchayats. When the Gram Sabha comes, big talk. We need to come together. When the Sarpanch asks who wants to be on the ward committee, you will get a list of 30, 40 names. When you call the first meeting, there will just be 10 people. Call the second meeting, there will be only 2 people. You know. And literally, I will tell you, even when the regional plan came, in the end we were 4 people, you know, working on what could be the whole suggestions given within a deadline. After work at night, from 6 to 9, sitting and working out something. When it comes to the ward development committees, no one even wants to come for a training program. Gidda is giving a training program, no one wants. After the training program is done, everyone is busy. So it's very easy to say that, you know, this village welfare and this whole thing. And that is what I'm saying, is that belongingness to my village has been lost. I belong to myself and I want everything to be outsourced.
So let us revive that
So
spirit of belonging.
this is the problem.
No, but the residents have to come themselves forward.
Any other question?
Who will bring them?
Even the full process, what our Honorable Secretary has said, entire things are explained properly, and they say it is the people from that village who has to come together and do the work themselves. And the government has to see that they do the work properly. If there are some lacunae, they have to guide them and correct them. Because you all know, the bureaucrats know how the things should go on. And if it is followed by the all village panchayats, a suggestion was there that this book has to be given to each panch of the village panchayat. And if he or she reads that book properly and follows the guidelines given in the book, all your plastic garbage problems will be resolved without any problem. And the government will save crores of rupees, which they are utilizing to create awareness among the villagers. Thank you, sir.
Sir, the councillor.
Sort of laws here, which are there, they really do not give powers to the village panchayats to do the functions which they are supposed to be doing. Lack of awareness is very much there. People do not get together for the purpose of getting things done, but most of the time they get together to undo the things or not to do the things or create obstacles in the operations that are going on. We have seen how Gram Sabhas are being disrupted by certain elements over issues, sometimes the good issues, bad issues, but disruption is more than a creative work. Well, perhaps we are passing through a very formative stage. Still, we may be, let us say that democracy is still young and it may need many more years to evolve in the right way. Meanwhile, I would request other members to put questions. Please, ma'am.
I would like to ask about this Gram Sabhas. We've heard earlier that a village Gram Sabha is like a small village parliament. But in a parliament, sir, you know, there is the speaker who controls the entire session. Whereas in a panchayat, I was ex-sarpanch of Benali, recently who's been voted out. I have seen and also proposed at the Gram Sabha that we need a moderator, because a sarpanch conducting the Gram Sabha as well as answering the Gram Sabha, the people is not done, because you have to deal with the question as well as deal with the people who are making noise. So why can't the Panchayat Raj formulate a policy wherein maybe the BDO's observer who comes is equipped with the knowledge to guide us also, because in the last Gram Sabha I asked him, can you take this resolution? He was incapable to give me an answer.
I request Mr. Matthews to answer this. Actually, I think the thing is that village secretaries, they are the people who should be able to give proper guidance.
Sir, I'll just interrupt. When I asked, it's recorded also, when I asked the secretary what can be done in this situation, he said, I'm here only to write the minutes of the meeting.
Yeah.
And I have written to the director, I wrote to the director.
That's what he's been told.
I have written to the director to kindly give us the role of the secretary at a panchayat meeting, at the Gram Sabha, and also during site inspections. Because what we have seen, even in a panchayat meeting, since earlier also they have mentioned that there are a lot of litigations coming from panchayats. It's also because the secretaries at the meeting do not guide us. There are decisions taken even in my panchayat which are not based on law, it's just on majority. Now, democracy, just because we have this power of taking decisions on majority doesn't mean it's a lawful decision.
The thing is that, I'll try to answer your question. See, basically it's about these secretaries whom we take. Actually, a secretary in the government has the rank of LDC.
Yeah.
It's a lower division clerk. Sometimes I found out recently in a review that some of these chaps have to look up to 3 panchayats at a test. What work can they do? I don't know. Secondly, they're not trained. They're not trained at all. We have been meeting people across the board. There are some who are very good. Some secretaries are very good. They can either do good or they can do a lot of this.
Extra good also.
Yeah, I know. That's what I meant. We are now in the process of recruiting some people. It should be over by the end of this month. Just this morning we took a train them for at least 3 months. Before
Mr. D'Souza has a suggestion.
put foot into
I think, would you tell it to us?
No, I think as Center for Panchayati Raj, this issue of putting a speaker for assembly, we had even had a model act. And I think Mr. Kharam, when he was in the law commission, we had submitted it. Even Mr. Manish Shankar Iyer and had
essential
about this thing. And it could be that there is a panel of speakers elected at the beginning of the year who go to a proper training program, and only then, otherwise you can see the Sarpanch also infiltrating their own people so that they can control the things. So it should be something very transparent and the whole thing. And this person is trained to conduct the Gram Sabhas, and he conducts the Gram Sabhas. As far as this thing concerned, actually in my Gram Sabha, I don't ask questions to the Sarpanch. I ask questions to the secretary. Because this is the man who is the custodian of the records. He is the person who is supposed to advise the Sarpanch. Okay. Unfortunately, even I have no SSC pass rickshaw driver. I am not talking about professions. You know, I respect dignity of labor. But this person who has no legal background is then taking that particular thing and going to the appellate authority. You know, he has no legal background to defend himself, and he is advising. He doesn't know how to advise the Sarpanch. And usually the secretary makes the mischief and then just keeps quiet and makes the Sarpanch to answer to the Gram Sabha. And this is the problem, is because people also who come to the Gram Sabha many times personalize the whole thing and start attacking particular persons. Okay, and this should not be the spirit of Gram Sabha. But that is what I come back, is each one of us should begin to think that when I go to a Gram Sabha, I am a parliamentarian there. Okay, I am a legislator there, and therefore I should conduct myself in a manner, not turn that into a marketplace. Okay, or settling scores or personal enmities there. So this is what I have been trying to tell Gram Sabha people: stop doing it. You know, start behaving responsibly, and that also will sort of empower this thing and give less scope for people to see what your Gram Sabhas, they are making a lot of noise, nothing happens. You know. But unfortunately, this was the duty of the government till today. Another thing, till today, excuse me, till today, okay, I have been following this whole issue for the last several years. After every panchayat body is elected, you have training for panchayat representatives. Let the government show me whether they have ever had for Gram Sabha members.
Sir, I have forwarded resolution to the director to
This is the
conduct
problem.
Gram Sabha training. How people should be placing their proposals, because most of the time what we have seen is proposals do not come in the right format and they get rejected, and then you have chaos at the Gram Sabha. So if people are, they were meaning to the director, I had written way back in 2012, end of 2012. And I suppose they were supposed to formulate a policy to train people, but till date nothing has happened. Once people are taught how to place their proposals and even debate, we will have healthy Gram Sabhas, and that's what we want for the villages.
I completely agree that you need to have some kind of training, but how we will get this done is another mystery. See, you want to train the Gram Sabha members, you have to do it at the village.
In fact, we had one experiment.
You probably have to call like a Gram Sabha and then tell them how.
Have a mock Gram Sabha.
Yeah,
A mock Gram Sabha.
We have had some one or two with the director of panchayat.
yeah. It'll help. I'm sure it will help, but it won't solve the problem because ultimately all these things in many of the Gram Sabhas are all engineered. So my suggest is this: there's a word called floor management. That word everyone has to use it. Every elected official has to know the game also, how to manage these things. You must have a few people inside that floor to make sure to take care of the hecklers. These are all, I mean, this is part of political life, shouting and yelling. I'm sure that most Gram Sabhas are like hell. I know people shouting and yelling all the time. But
Mr. Samuel, many of the times, sorry madam, many of the times the Gram Sabha goes into commotion is because of the poor skills of the person conducting of this thing. Many times when the mob is getting this thing, you don't further add fuel to fire. Okay, sometimes you need to back off. You have the scope of adjourning the meeting for 5 minutes. You have that scope. Use it so that people calm down. But don't infiltrate or try to provoke certain things, because when a mob gets provoked, then you are helpless. So there are certain skills of managing a meeting, knowing what to say, whom to also neutralize very systematically. See, in our Gram Sabha, this thing is to happen. It no more happens, because the whole Gram Sabha stands up and tells that fellow, you shut up. Okay. Let us go on with our thing. So automatically.
So thankfully during my tenure I didn't have this problem because I could manage, but I know that earlier in Benares,
These problems are there in many places.
in many places, but
Yes, ma'am. I have a question to Mr. Matthew myself. We all talked about garbage. But in every village, we have the problem of disposal of dead animals and dead human beings as well. Do you agree or I don't know whether you agree? Dead human beings. Yeah. There are no cemeteries, no burial places, no crematoria in many places. Fortunately, for the Catholic community, we have a well organized. But now there are so many designations of Christians in Goa, besides Catholics. The problem is, this came to me as chairman of the Law Commission, and we gave a report to the government also. Settlement of creation of public burial and cremation places open to people of all castes, creeds, nationalities also. Any village if you go today, you will find a body burning on this side of the road and another one burning on the other side of the road. Sometimes 3-4 people being burned today, tomorrow, in one corner here, one corner there, everywhere. No, there are cremation places which are, belonging not only to a particular caste, but to a subcaste and to a family group within the subcaste. There was a very pathetic issue of a carpenter who died in a Petne village some time back. He belonged to a village called Ivrampur and he had settled in another village called Alorna. He died in Alorna. The people from Alorna said, he is not from our village, so he cannot be cremated anywhere in our place. So the body remained for almost a day there until the Mamlar came in and tried to persuade, nobody agreed. He took the body to the old village, which is a neighboring village, Ibrahimpur. They said, yeah, he was our man, but he left this village and he went elsewhere. So how can we accept him now?
This is village report.
48 hours. The body was almost rotting there, and ultimately on the middle of between the two villages, the Mamladar had to finally tell the neighbors, come on, whatever you can get, some firewood, and then the body was disposed of. This is happening in a big way. There's a problem for the Muslims. Again, they have various denominations among them. So this is an issue which is going to confront us in a much serious way in the days to come. Is the government doing something to settle this issue? At least in each taluka, if we can create one public burial and cremation place, and one large one somewhere in North Goa, one in South Goa. We have beautiful crematoria and burial places in many parts of the country. Forget about the Western world or the Eastern world. Why can't we create something like this? We say this is a tourist place. And you will find if you go to Kalangut, bodies burning just near the beach, or rather on the beach, you can say. And the last rites being performed there in a very disgusting manner. So this is the work also of the panchayats. It's also the work of the municipalities. Look, nobody owns here.
Mr. Khalaf, this is exactly what I'm saying. Who prioritizes the works? You have the MLA putting up a 5 crore panchayat ghar with central AC, and then telling people to pay 60,000 to hire the hall. Which villager is going to pay 60,000? You have a no public maidan. Every small little open space is encroached by sports complexes, swimming pools, whereas the basic things like burial, a decent burial, is never a priority. So all these white elephants are created, and whereas these small issues which should have been number one are just left. But ultimately, unless these shining projects come, no politician also gets famous. If he starts a burial ground and people will ask him, what did you do in the last 5 years? So this is the problem.
It's already 1:30. Last question.
I just wanted to say, how we keep on polluting the Ganga, we keep on putting things in the Ganga, and we keep on.
Now, many times today I read about our own Ganga. I think we have had enough discussion on all these issues. I think not only all 5 fingers point towards us as individual citizens of our place, all mess that we have created for ourselves, and that is enough. It is good to blame the corporator or the panchayat member or the MLA or the minister, but basically, let's go back to Gandhiji. Let us remember what he said. Self-restraint. That is the only way by which self-governance would be properly implemented. Madam, you had any question?
Thank you, Advocate Khalaf, for chairing this very interactive session on devolution of powers to panchayat key to good